The air is thick with tension. It's not just the sound of muted conversations filled with unspoken expectations. She stands at the kitchen counter, fingers gripping the worn edge, heart heavy with memories of sacrifices made. Outside, the bustling city hums indifferently, while inside, the silent screams of a love strained by familial duty. A faint smell of garlic and simmering tomatoes lingers, a reminder of countless meals prepared with hope and longing. What happens when a mother takes back her voice when the world has whispered her away? It's not just a story, it's a reckoning. My son told me to stay out of his marriage, so I did. I stayed out of everything I paid for, including the townhouse I gave them as a wedding gift. What happened next? Well, if they weren't ready for that. Before we dive in, thank you for being here with me today. This story is close to my heart. If it resonates, I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Now, let me tell you what happens when a mother reclaims her identity. I gave that boy everything, not just the big things, the food, the roof, the education. I gave him my knees, my spine, my prayers. I sacrificed my 20s, my 30s. All the peace I never got back. His daddy left when he was 3, saying he'd come back when he figured himself out. He's still figuring, I guess. But Ethan was my reason to keep going. I worked double shifts at City Hospital, cleaning vomit off tile and praying my back would hold up long enough to get through one more room. Each night I'd come home, make dinner from scratch, and listen as he told me about the weird kids at school and his dreams of building houses. We used to dream so big. I would say, "Mama, let's get a place with no upstairs neighbors, where the walls don't eavesdrop." And he'd promise, "I'm going to be rich one day, buy you a townhouse with a garden." I smiled every time, even when my hands ached too much to hold a spoon. When I bought my first townhouse at 42, you would have thought I'd won the lottery. A little red brick number with crooked shutters and a creaky porch, but it was everything. I planted roses in the front yard, each one named after a struggle I survived: eviction, betrayal, pneumonia. They bloomed just like I did. By the time Ethan turned 34, he was doing well. Worked at some firm downtown talking about client acquisition and equity potential. I didn't always understand it, but I always asked questions. I wanted to stay involved. I wanted him to see that I was here, ready to fight for my place in his life again. How far can a mother go to reclaim her voice? How much heart can withstand the weight of silence? When family dynamics shift under the pressure of expectations, sometimes it takes a moment of courage to bridge the gap. This isn't just our story. It's a story shared by many, and when the storm clears, can a new bond be forged from the ashes? The aroma of sweet potato pie wrapped around me like a warm embrace as I smiled at my boy, Ethan Carter, and his wife, Kendra. She was beautiful, always put together, nails gleaming like they were crafted for a magazine. Kendra had a way of speaking that felt rehearsed, every word delivered with a precision that reminded me of a business pitch. I didn't mind, it was just her style. When they tied the knot, I gifted them my little red brick townhouse, the one I'd poured my heart and soul into, not a loan or a check, just the townhouse itself. I had downsized to a small condo, figuring I didn't need much anymore. I wanted them to have a safe place built on the sacrifices I had made. "Start your life here," I told them, hopeful. They beamed at me. Kendra thanked me quickly, her gratitude sounding scripted. At first, everything felt fine. I'd drop off meals, and they sent me photos of their redecorating. But slowly, the texts turned into silence. Instead of daily updates, I found myself staring at days without a word, then weeks. Every time I called, Ethan's voice had that strange tone, the one people use when they're not alone. I began to notice things, how every photo they posted touted phrases like, "finally created our dream space," and "started from the bottom." I was never mentioned. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself they were simply adjusting to married life. Then came the day I baked a peach cobbler, the go-to favorite of Ethan's since he was a kid. He always insisted it was better than anything in the world. Not even video games could compete. As I pressed the crust with memories swirling in my mind, I thought maybe this would be my ticket back into their lives. Arriving at their doorstep, I knocked and waited, heart fluttering with a mix of hope and nostalgia. Ethan Carter opened the door. Halfway. Not wide, not welcoming, just halfway. I felt the space between us stretch. "We've talked about this, Mom," he said, and I blinked, confusion smothering my thoughts. What was unsaid lingered in the air, heavy and thick, as if the walls held their own secrets. Could our once close bond survive this distance? How could I reclaim my place when everything felt so rearranged? I took a deep breath, staring at my son, the sweetness of the cobbler evaporating into an unyielding silence. Sometimes we have to confront the hardest truths if we want to mend what's fractured. But what if we're building walls instead of bridges? Would family love send roots deep enough to survive the storms raging within? The summer air wrapped around Margaret Carter like a warm embrace, but outside her son's door she felt a chill. Laughter echoed from within, a haunting reminder of the bond she thought was unbreakable. In her hands, the peach cobbler, once a symbol of love, now felt like a weight, heavy with unspoken words. She turned away, heart racing, realizing that Ethan was slipping away, not just physically, but emotionally. The truth hit her hard. He was not just growing up, he was choosing a life that might not include her. "Talked about what, baby?" Ethan's voice cut through her thoughts. "You can't just pop up. Kendra and I have boundaries." That word, boundaries, stung like a slap. She hadn't raised him with guilt or hovered like those overbearing mothers on TV. She showed up every few weeks, always with food and a smile. But now, as she stood there, she felt like a stranger. Before she could respond, Kendra's voice chimed in, casual and dismissive. "Honestly, Ethan Carter, we've been thinking about changing the locks." She laughed and Ethan joined in, chuckling like she'd just told a joke. The boy she held through night fevers and middle school heartbreaks was gone, replaced by a man who found humor in her pain. "We're good, Mom. Thanks, though." The door closed, and just like that, Margaret was left standing there, holding the cobbler like a fool. The warmth of the summer sun felt mocking as she walked back to her car. The cobbler steamed against the foil, unaware of its rejection. She sat behind the wheel, staring at the townhouse that once felt like home. The roses bloomed, vibrant and alive, but they weren't hers anymore. In the rearview mirror, she saw Kendra leaning over Ethan's shoulder, sharing a moment that used to belong to her. Their laughter, once her favorite sound, now felt like a door locking from the inside, a door she had paid for. Margaret didn't cry. She didn't curse. Instead, she went home, placed the cobbler in the fridge, and poured herself a cup of tea. In her bedroom, she opened her file cabinet and pulled out the deed to the townhouse. They thought she was just a guest, but she was about to remind them who built it. The cobbler sat untouched for days, a silent witness to her heartbreak. Every time she opened the fridge, it loomed there, waiting for her to admit she'd been played. It wasn't just dessert anymore. It was evidence of a love that felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Could she reclaim her place in Ethan's life? Or was she destined to watch from the sidelines as he built a new family without her? The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. As I traced my fingers over the creased edges of the deed, a loud crash echoed from the living room. My heart raced and I froze, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Was it Ethan? Was he finally ready to confront the shadows that have loomed over us for so long? The silence that followed buzzed with anticipation, but I couldn't move. What if this was the moment our lives began to unravel, or would it weave us together anew? A symbol of everything I'd given, mocked, forgotten, and tossed aside, sat stark in front of me. I couldn't throw it out. It cut deep. Tears felt like a luxury now, like a young woman's game. I had buried loved ones, pushed through illness, held my ground while the world crumbled. Pain turned into silence, and silence made others squirm, uncertain of what's next. I sat at my table for hours that night, flipping through the same manila folder I hadn't opened since Ethan's wedding. Inside, every significant piece of my life was crammed together: birth certificates, insurance papers. And at the back, behind a plastic sleeve, lay the deed. Not just any deed, the deed to the townhouse on Hillside Avenue. Every nail pounded into those walls was my labor, each brick a memory infused with sweat and sacrifice. When Ethan and Kendra got married, I gifted it to them, not blind. I had a clause added. If you're giving away something this big, you keep your parachute, my lawyer Cynthia had said. A line so subtle it's easy to overlook if you're arrogant. Gift subject to continued familial relationship and respect. I never thought I'd use it, but that night on the porch, when Ethan declared, "This isn't your townhouse anymore," and Kendra joked about changing the locks, something in me snapped. They didn't just disrespect me. They claimed sole authorship of a story I had written long before either of them entered the scene. They wanted my labor's rewards without my presence weighing them down. Every moment flashed in my mind: the late nights, the missed meals, the joyous tears at Ethan's first steps. But now, they were ready to turn the page, leaving me in the margins, unseen and unheard. I didn't want to fade into the background. I wanted to reclaim my place. The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. Could I find a way back before it was too late? The air crackled with tension as Ethan's voice surged through the phone, angry, bewildered. The townhouse, once a cherished home, felt like it was closing in on me. Outside, Philadelphia's streets hummed with life, oblivious to the tempest brewing inside. Every heartbeat echoed the weight of unspoken words, the gravity of a moment that might fracture our fragile bond. The silence that followed? It was deafening, leaving us both teetering on the edge, dizzy with uncertainty. Was this the breaking point, or the beginning of something new? I stood in the middle of the dining room, everything I'd sacrificed laid bare before me. Printed receipts, maintenance invoices, even the deed to a legacy woven with my sweat and toil. I'd worked day in and day out for that home, pouring my heart into every nail and brick. Yet, it felt as if the past was slipping through my fingers. Tears felt like a weakness now. I'd buried loved ones, fought through sickness, but the real battle was right here. As enthusiasm turned to frustration, Ethan's declaration from the porch rang in my ears: "This isn't your townhouse anymore." That sharp jab from my own son was more than words. It was a dismissal of everything I stood for. I had gifted them that home, but it came with conditions. When I handed it over, I was promised respect and inclusion. Now, it felt like they were erasing my name from the story I had penned every day. So I took action. I crafted a legal notice, something I'd never imagined I'd need. Intent to reclaim title under conditional clause. I read it 3 times, making sure every word reflected my truth. Cynthia, my lawyer, answered on the first ring. "You sure?" she asked. "As sure as the day I gave it to him," I replied. A war was brewing, and my resolve was unshakable. 3 days later, I sent the notice, certified and legally binding, to Ethan Carter, to Kendra, and one taped to the door of the townhouse I had bled for. The silence that enveloped me was suffocating. I heard nothing for 5 long days. Then my phone rang, a blocked number. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Mama, what the hell is this?" Ethan's voice trembled, panic evident. "There's a notice on our door saying we have 30 days to vacate." "Are you serious?" he squeaked. "It's not your door. It's mine." His silence was almost palpable. "You gave us that townhouse, Mama. As a gift." I gave it to the man I raised, the one who'd never laugh at his mother standing on the porch she built. Ethan's exhale was heavy. You're punishing us over a joke. I'm reclaiming my name before you erase it entirely. A long pause stretched between us. Do you know how this makes us look? I wanted to laugh. Boy, you're worried about how you look. You should be worried about how you treated me. Then he hung up. No goodbye, just an echo. The next morning, Kendra took to social media, spilling tears into the camera. It was a slick video, a sob story about boundaries and respect. My husband's mother is trying to ruin our marriage. Just like that, we were thrust into a public spectacle. But I wasn't backing down. This fight was for my life, my legacy, my very name. Would this be the battle that defined us, or could we find a path back to each other before it was too late? He never said my name. Not once. The townhouse, just a backdrop for his crocodile tears and soft piano music, designed to pull at heartstrings. But the internet? It's sharper than he thinks. People started connecting the dots. Wedding photos resurfaced, captions boasting about building everything from scratch. One woman even unearthed a Facebook post I made the day I handed over the keys. I pray this home gives you the peace I never had. Build wisely. That went viral. His little video, buried under comments like, "Y'all erased that woman's whole name. She gave you a townhouse and you mocked her. Black mothers are not disposable." He tried deleting it, then went private. I stayed silent, just waiting. The clock ticked. 25 days left, then 20, then 15. No calls, no apologies, just whispers. Every time I opened that fridge and saw the cobbler I made, I thought, they still think this is a negotiation. But it wasn't. It was already done. And they were running out of time. 7 days left. That's all they had. Did they know, or were they pretending? Some people cope with consequences by ignoring them until they show up, clipboard in hand. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I wasn't waiting for Ethan to come to his senses, or for Kendra to shed fake tears at my door. I'd given them more grace than they ever earned. This wasn't about reconciliation, it was about removal. Quiet, legal removal. Still, I'll admit, this part wasn't easy. You don't raise someone for 30 years, sacrifice everything, and then celebrate taking something back. There's no joy in that, only clarity, and sometimes clarity cuts deeper than hate. On the 7th day, I went to church. I sat in my usual spot, 2 pews from the front, far right side. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, making the dust sparkle like tiny stars. As the tension in the room thickened, Ethan stood frozen, the weight of my sacrifices heavy on his shoulders. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced like ghosts of our past. Just as he opened his mouth to confront me about the truth, the phone rang, shattering the silence. Who could it be? The question hung in the air, a palpable tension that begged for resolution. Gloria's heart raced as she stood at the threshold of the living room. The faded sun streamed through the blinds, casting sharp shadows on the walls. Everything felt heavy, like the air was charged with electricity. She stared at the empty chair where Ethan used to sit, vibrant and full of dreams. A soft creak echoed from the hallway, pulling her attention. Was it just her imagination, or had she really heard him? In this moment, everything hung in a delicate balance. Could she truly reclaim her life without losing him? I didn't pray for strength. I already had it. I prayed for peace. Not for me, but for Ethan. Because after this, there would be no going back. I walked out before the benediction. I didn't want hugs. I didn't want pity. I just wanted silence. When I got home, I found the voicemail. It was from Cynthia. The judge signed the ruling. Title reversion is final. The townhouse is legally yours again, Gloria. They have 3 days to vacate, or they'll be removed by force. Cynthia didn't say it cold. She's a bulldog in court, but soft in spirit. I could hear the sympathy in her voice. She knew this wasn't just paperwork, it was blood work. I didn't listen to the rest. I knew what came next. The countdown had become official. 3 days. The next morning, I took a slow walk through my condo. No music, just the sound of my slippers dragging across the tile. I passed by the shelf where I keep my photo albums. My fingers hovered over the spines. I almost pulled one down. Ethan's high school graduation, the look in his eyes when I handed him his first laptop. He hugged me so tight that day I couldn't breathe, but I didn't open it. I wasn't in the mood to mourn someone still breathing. I made tea. Strong. No sugar. Then I opened Facebook. Not for them. For me. I typed, "Some people forget the foundation they're standing on until it moves." No names, no shade, just truth. 37 likes, 8 comments, all from women I'd known for decades. Women who had raised children into strangers. Women who had paid rent on respect and got evicted anyway. One comment said, "Say it louder, Gloria." Another just said, "I feel this." Later that afternoon, I went to the bank. I requested a full printout of the utilities and property maintenance accounts still in my name. The townhouse had been theirs in theory, but I never took my name off the records. I'd kept paying the property insurance. I knew Kendra didn't notice. Those kinds of women never ask who's behind the curtain as long as the lights stay on. As the clock ticked down, I felt the weight of my choices. Would reclaiming my life mean losing my son? The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I had to decide. Would I fight for my identity, or would I let it slip away? The answer loomed closer with each passing moment. The clerk gave me a folder an inch thick. I smiled. Back home, I flipped through it all. Dates, amounts, auto deductions, my generosity printed in black ink. Ethan Carter called that night, not from his number. It was a new line, one I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, I heard the voice of a man I didn't recognize either. "Mama, I know you're mad. I know we made mistakes, but can we please talk before this goes too far?" Too far? You must have thought this was step 1. I had just started. Like I hadn't been sitting on this decision since the first time he closed that door in my face. I didn't call back. Days left. Kendra called next. I didn't answer. She texted instead, "You're hurting your son more than you realize. You're tearing this family apart." "People are talking," I typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Then I sent one message. "I stayed out of your marriage like I was told. Now stay out of my townhouse." Blocked her after that. I didn't need to see whatever performative meltdown she had planned next. One day left. Cynthia called again. She said the sheriff had already been scheduled to oversee the transition. She asked if I wanted to be there when the locks were changed. I said, "No, I've already seen enough." That night, I cooked dinner. Not takeout, not leftovers, a full spread, colored greens, baked chicken, black-eyed peas, cornbread, the kind of meal that smells like roots and redemption. The kind I used to make when Ethan Carter came home from college. I didn't do it to celebrate. I did it because I needed to remember who I was before they tried to rewrite me. I ate alone, quietly, gratefully. Then I went to the fridge, opened the door, took out the cobbler. It was still there, covered in foil, slightly wilted. I warmed it up, sat down at the table, took one bite, and it tasted just like I remembered. Sweet, satisfying. The morning came quietly. I woke before the sun touched the blinds. My body, it always knows. The tension hung thick in the air as that familiar yet foreign knock echoed in the townhouse. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating swirling dust motes. Yet all Margaret Carter could hear was the racing of her heart. Who was it? Ethan? Or someone else? someone poised to unravel everything she had fought to reclaim. That question echoed in her mind, heavy with uncertainty, urging her to confront the past she was desperate to escape. Margaret had planned this day meticulously. No music, no distractions, just her alone, listening to the hum of the fridge. Today marked a turning point. The townhouse was hers again. No more boxes, no more excuses, no more seeing Ethan's eyes filled with disappointment. That knock, though, it had knocked her off balance. Was it the sheriff, a messenger dropping off papers? But when she peeked through the peephole, dread washed over her. It was Kendra, holding a coffee cup like it was an olive branch. She hesitated. She wanted Kendra to feel the sting of rejection, to know what it was like to be outside looking in. Just minutes felt like hours as she let the silence stretch. When she finally opened the door, she didn't waste time on pleasantries. Kendra's smile faltered. Those oversized sunglasses did little to hide her anxious energy. "I just want to talk," she said, sweet as the sugar she never shared. But Margaret stood resolute, arms crossed, unwavering. "Say it from there." Kendra sighed, her exhale heavy with desperation. "We didn't mean to disrespect you. It was just boundaries." But boundaries felt like chains to Margaret, chains that had kept her from being the woman she used to be. As Kendra continued to babble about respect and misunderstandings, her words faded into the background. Margaret was poised at the precipice of reclaiming her life, and this moment was hers to define. Outside, a storm gathered, the scent of rain thick in the air, but inside, Margaret felt nothing but a charged calm. Would she take back her life, or would she allow these family dynamics to bind her once more? She had fought too hard to let that happen. With a slow breath, she prepared to speak, her voice a soft yet steady current amidst the chaos of her emotions. Would this be the confrontation that turned everything around, or would it just push Ethan further away? The world outside faded, and in that moment, a choice lay before her, as rich and vibrant as the colors in her memory. I stood there, heart racing, frustration bubbling like a pot about to boil over. I wanted her to really feel this, to own her words like she had that day when she joked about changing the locks. But today, there was nothing funny about it. "You called me a guest in my own home," I shot back, laughter escaping as a reflex. But deep down, my heart churned. I had to cut her off. "Don't act innocent now. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted me erased. Quietly, fatly, like old furniture no one wants to move in front of guests." She looked away, guilt barely concealed. "You didn't just ignore me," I pushed, my voice rising. "You dishonored me. You took what I worked for, smiled for the camera, and made me just background noise." I could see her throat tighten. She was struggling to reply. Then she crossed a line. Ethan didn't mean any of this. My insides ignited. "No," I snapped. When he looked me in the face and said this wasn't my home anymore, when he stood beside you like a shadow and watched you treat me like I was invisible, that wasn't his choice. Silence enveloped us like a heavy fog. Her eyes widened, realizing the depths of her actions. "You don't get to pretend this was an accident. You wanted me gone." "Well, now you got it. Congratulations." Her lip quivered, that emotional act she perfected. "You're really going to make us homeless?" she asked, feigning concern. I scoffed, feeling my own disbelief seep out. "Homeless? Please. You've got followers, sponsors, a whole family behind you. You've got options. The only thing you're missing is my townhouse." "I built a brand around that kitchen," she shot back defiantly. "And I built the kitchen," I replied coldly, "before you even knew what a ring light was." She tried to pivot, desperation creeping into her voice. "People are talking. Gloria, you're ruining our image. What about Ethan Carter's job, his reputation?" I chuckled, a bitter laugh that hung in the air between us. "My dignity matters more than your reputation. How can you even stand there, claiming to care for our family but shutting me out of the home I gave him. Her silence spoke louder than any words could. The air crackled with the tension of unspoken truths, and in that moment, I realized this confrontation may change everything. Would we find a way back to each other, or would this divide us forever? The storm outside mirrored the tempest in my heart, and the choice ahead loomed like dark clouds on the horizon, vivid and unyielding. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, made sure she couldn't even breathe inside my peace. I leaned in close. "You should have read the clause." I said it was right there. Small print. "The same way y'all made me small in my own home." She finally broke. Not all the way, but her eyes welled up, and for a second she looked like someone who finally saw the train coming. Too late to move. Then she said something weak, something desperate. "What do we tell the neighbors?" I smiled wide this time. "Tell them the truth," I said. "Tell them the townhouse went back to the one who never left it." She walked off then. No more tears, no more begging, just quiet footsteps and shame. The same shame she tried to hand me on a silver platter 6 months ago when I stood on my porch with peach cobbler and a heart full of love. I watched her drive away. No honk, no wave, just gone. Cynthia texted at 10:06 p.m. "They're out. Keys collected, lock changed, property cleared, all yours." I didn't reply. I just sat down at my kitchen table and looked at my hands, the same hands that cleaned operating rooms, braided Ethan Carter's hair, planted roses, and signed the paper that took back everything they thought I forgot how to claim. I wasn't angry anymore. I was sovereign, and that silence, that was the sound of a matriarch taking back her name. The day after the eviction, the neighborhood group chat exploded. I wasn't even on it, but Miss Carolyn from across the street sent me screenshots all morning. There was one from a woman named Brittany, lived 2 houses down from Hillside. "Did y'all see the sheriff out there? What happened?" Then someone else chimed in. "I thought they owned that place." Kendra always said it was her dream home. Then the story started. Apparently, Ethan Carter and Kendra didn't tell anyone what was going on. No notice, no warning, just left the townhouse in silence while the locksmith changed the bolts. The faint scent of cinnamon lingered in the air, a ghost from holidays long past. Ethan Carter leaned against the doorframe, memories flooding him. Laughter once echoed through their Philadelphia townhouse, the warmth of his mother Margaret's pies wrapping around them like a cozy blanket. Those memories were bittersweet now. Shadows of simpler times weighed heavily on him. How could he chase his dreams without stepping on the fragile legacy they had built together? Outside, the rain tapped gently against the pavement. Each drop felt like a question. Could he manage the expectations his mother carried? Margaret, resilient and nurturing, fought her own battles. She had spent years carving out a place for herself, even when family dynamics threatened to overshadow her. Now, as she reclaimed her identity, could they find common ground? A few days after the quiet storm swept through their lives, Ethan stood still in the chaos. Online gossip churned and twisted in the local community. The headlines read, "Black entrepreneur couple evicted from historic family home." Even without his name, he felt the weight of their scrutiny. People huddled around their screens, compelled to dissect a situation so painfully personal. The comments stung like a slap in the face. "Y'all erased the woman who gave you the roof," one remarked. Another added, "She built that home, and they turned her into a guest." Ethan found himself trapped between 2 worlds, watching as their story unraveled in real time. At that moment, silence wrapped around him like a shroud. He remembered the keys he once handed to his bride, along with a note that echoed his hopes for peace and unity. The memory had gone semi-viral before, drawing tears from strangers who knew nothing of their real history. Yet now, he was stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, feeling the tension between ambition and belonging. 2 days later, Margaret took a breath. the air heavy with anticipation. When Ethan's name lit up her phone, she hesitated. Did he know what had happened? Their lives hung in the balance, the space between them charged with unspoken emotions. As she answered, she braced herself for the truth. Hi. It was so simple, yet weighted with everything they hadn't said. Mom, I saw the posts. In that moment, everything felt alive again. The rain outside fell harder, but between mother and son, a silent understanding began to blossom, flickering with hope amidst the pain of unmet expectations. I could hear him breathing, hear the words he was struggling to form. Everything's kind of falling apart right now. I didn't answer. Kendra's blaming me. Her family's disappointed. So, I didn't answer. He exhaled. You really didn't have to go that far. That made me blink. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Ethan Carter, I said, calm as glass. I didn't go far. I went home. Silence again. You embarrassed us, he whispered. No, I said. You embarrassed me. I just made it legal. He didn't speak after that. I don't know if he expected tears or softness, or for me to fold like I used to when he scraped his knee and cried until I picked him up. But this wasn't the same boy, and I wasn't the same mother. Not anymore. You told me to stay out of your marriage, I continued, so I stayed out of everything tied to it. That includes the townhouse, the bank transfers, and my silence. You don't get to treat me like a stranger and keep my name on your foundation. He finally said it. I'm sorry. It didn't land the way he thought it would, not because it wasn't overdue, but because it was empty. He didn't call me when the lawyer's letters came. He didn't defend me when Kendra laughed. He didn't check on me when I stopped coming around. He only came to say sorry when the internet decided I was right. And that's not an apology. That's PR. I didn't accept it. I didn't reject it. I just said, thank you. Then I hung up because some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to be closed. Later that evening, I made dinner again. Something simple. Lentils and rice, some kale on the side. I ate in silence. No TV, no music, just the hum of peace. And after dinner, I pulled out a photo from an old shoebox, Ethan Carter, at 10 years old, sitting on the porch with his arms full of school supplies I bought from 3 different stores because we couldn't afford everything in one trip. I looked at that boy for a long time, then I put the photo away because I had mourned him already. The townhouse sat empty for 2 weeks. The air was thick with the scent of fresh peach cobbler, a bittersweet reminder of family gatherings long gone. I could almost hear my mother's warm laughter, echoing as she served slices to eager hands. Now, the kitchen stood empty, the memories swirling like ghosts around me. I closed my eyes, burdened by unspoken words and unresolved conflicts. The walls seemed to wrap around my sorrow, holding tight to who we were before everything fractured. In that moment, it hit me. Reclaiming my identity meant facing the shadows of our shared history. No curtains. No laughter, just silence, like the townhouse itself was holding its breath after witnessing years of prayers and betrayals. I could remember the muffled sobs behind bathroom doors, the smell of peach cobbler that never made it past the threshold. It was resting, and I didn't rush to fill it. No online listings, no calls to real estate friends. I needed time to let go of what it used to be, to connect with who I was before I handed over the key to someone who didn't even bother to say thank you. Are you moving back in, Miss Gloria? They kept asking. You should Airbnb it, make some cash back. One neighbor half whispered, I'd burn it down if it were me, just for peace. But peace isn't made from flames. It comes from forgiveness, not for them, but for me. Forgiveness doesn't always mean making amends. Sometimes it's about shedding the weight of what others tried to bury me under. So, one quiet morning, I slid into my car and drove across town. Not to the hillside, but to a small daycare sandwiched between a laundromat and a tire shop. It was nothing fancy, but something about the sign called to me. Inside, I met Tiana, a woman whose exhaustion spoke volumes. Her soft voice navigated the chaos as she managed the needs of her 2 kids from a one-bedroom apartment that leaked every time it rained. I didn't ask for her story, but she shared it anyway. Sometimes, when you finally get asked how you're doing, the truth spills over like a dam breaking. I drove home with purpose, pulled the deed from my drawer, and called Cynthia. "I found who it belongs to," I said with certainty. She didn't even question me. Just like that, the papers were signed 3 days later. As the sun dipped below the skyline, I realized I didn't just release a townhouse. I let go of the past, making space for the future. A new chapter was ready to begin, a lesson learned, a fresh start ahead, and the taste of new beginnings. I didn't give them the townhouse the same way I gave it to Ethan Carter. No party, no pictures, no ribbon, just a firm handshake and a small box with 2 keys and a note. Tiana, build gently. Race loudly. Make it a home where no one ever feels like a guest. Gloria, I didn't go with them the day they moved in. I didn't need to. I had already made peace with the townhouse. It was no longer a symbol of what I lost. It was a tool I had reclaimed and passed forward. The next week, I got a card in the mail, handwritten, blue ink. Inside it said, "My daughter asked if the lady who gave us the townhouse used to be a superhero." I told her yes, because only superheroes can take pain and turn it into a porch full of hope. I put that card on my fridge right next to a magnet that says, "Protect your peace like it pays the rent." One night, about 2 weeks after the new family moved in, I finally did something I hadn't done since the day I stood on that porch with cobbler in my hands. I walked to the shelf and pulled out the old photo album, the one with Ethan Carter in it, the baby pictures, his 3rd grade spelling bee. The prom suit I hemmed myself because we couldn't afford tailoring, college graduation, his wedding, all of it. I sat with those photos for hours. I cried, but not like people cry in movies. No loud sobs, no shaking hands, just tears, soft, steady, like the body was finally letting go of a weight it had carried in secret for too long. I didn't cry for Ethan Carter. I cried for the woman I used to be, the one who kept believing that love meant losing yourself, that sacrifice meant silence, that giving meant disappearing. And when the tears dried, I stood up, closed the album, and slid it back into the drawer. Not because I was erasing him, but because I no longer needed proof that I had done my part. The next morning, I made myself a big breakfast. Eggs, grits, sausage, the whole thing. I played gospel music loud and sang along while I cooked. In the dim light of the kitchen, Ethan Carter stands before his mother, Margaret. The air is thick with unspoken words, a tension that feels almost tangible. The aroma of her home-cooked meals mingles with the rich scent of fresh coffee, creating a comforting yet charged atmosphere. As their eyes meet, tears shimmer, revealing years of struggle and unconditional love. "I just want to make you proud," Ethan finally admits, his voice trembling with emotion. Margaret reaches out, her hand warm and steady. "You already have, my son." In that moment, the walls of expectation begin to crumble, and a new understanding blossoms between them. What does it mean to truly support one another? Can love exist without sacrifice? As they navigate the complexities of family dynamics, both Ethan and Margaret learn that reclaiming their identities is just as important as their bond. In the heart of Philadelphia, amidst economic struggles and the weight of family expectations, they discover that boundaries are sacred. Margaret realizes she never needed permission to take up space in her own life. As the sun sets, casting a golden hue through the window, she whispers a quiet prayer of gratitude. This isn't just a story about a townhouse. It's about a woman who finally remembers her worth. She's not just a guest in her own life anymore. She's the foundation, and she's here to stay, 2.